Hey, Author Nation, it's Joe Solari, and we are still at NINC, and we're today with the illustrious crew from Draft2Digital.
Hello.
Dan,
Hello.
Jim, welcome to the Secret Lair.
Thanks, Joe.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. So, you've been a huge supporter of NINC for
Many years.
many years.
I think I started coming in 2015, so almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Missed some of the pandemic years, but it's we've been coming for a long time.
Yeah. You didn't miss anything. I was there. the 38 of us that showed up.
Yeah, I remember that there were a number of people, but it was like, I couldn't remember if it was like 40 or 50.
So for COVID, when it all went down, we had a big family trip planned to go to New York. So we had spring break priced tickets, the whole deal.
Yep.
And I traveled a year on the credits just from that one trip.
Yeah.
And when I flew down here, it cost me more money to the car ride from Tampa Bay to here than the ticket did. That's changed.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. Awesome. Well, we're not here to talk about things that have passed. We're here to talk about the future with Draft2Digital. And you got some cool stuff that, well, I guess some of it's it's moving from the past.
Yeah, definitely moving forward with things,
Yeah.
especially, we acquired Smashwords, and we've been moving towards moving all of their users over to our platform. And then, we're really wanting to do like an overhaul of Smashwords to really focus on being a storefront,
Okay.
which they've been for years. The sales there continue to grow, especially during the special sales events that we've been doing. So that's been really great.
Well, before we go, talk about that for a second, because a lot of people probably don't understand how those special sales work.
So originally Smashwords was both a platform for distribution, so getting people to all the different places. Generally, people would go direct to Amazon, but they would use Draft2Digital or Smashwords for getting their book to other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
They've also had a storefront from, I think, the very
Day one.
beginning almost.
That's how it started in the first place.
It was that first.
Yeah,
was-
publish
yeah.
your book, sell it at the Smashword store.
Yeah. And so it's...
what year? I don't mean to.
No
what
worries.
year was that?
2008.
So, you were one of the OGs in direct sales.
Absolutely. At the time, Mark Coker the founder, wanted to just focus on publishing books. And then someone suggested to him, one of his better selling authors suggested to him, hey, maybe you should approach some of the retailers to accept self-published books. Mm-hmm. And at the time, Mark thought, no way, they're not going to say yes to carrying self-published books. But they did.
Mm-hmm.
Barnes & Noble was one of the first,
Yeah.
to believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Then after we started sending self-published ebooks into Barnes & Noble, all the others came on fairly rapidly after that.
really opened up the door to Apple, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and I think Overdrive.
Sony.
So yeah, at the time, yeah. Wow, it's amazing to think that Sony used to be a player in this industry.
Like a legit player.
Yeah,
Yeah.
made the first e-reader way before Amazon ever did.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's so many of those things, right? That early, the Newton and things. Yeah.
I'm surprised when we look over some of our reports, because we're having to go and look at accounting from 10 years ago. All the companies have come and gone. Just some companies we all worked with that just aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
And then there's all kinds of new ones that we're adding. We add a few every year.
Well, that's interesting. Is I think one of the broader themes with the show and talking to people is just change.
Change, yeah.
Right. There's such a resistance, but would you really want the market to just stay like it is now? Everything is just this way for perpetuity.
Yeah, it's all changing. Costs. I'm a big proponent. I still feel like a lot of authors are undervaluing their works.
Well, that's for sure.
There are things like inflation that are driving up the cost for the creators and for their business. And I think a lot of authors have this idea of the price point books were when they were younger being the right price, be it across print or maybe around ebooks. When, like any business, you've got to adjust your pricing according to how much it's costing you to produce something.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Well, so, one of the things we've been doing with the show that really is aligned with that is the idea of how can we find high price point readers, right? So we've got data, and we can talk around about this at Tiki Bar. But started with this idea and went through the process of, can we find cold prospects and convert them into a high ticket show ticket, right? Because if I know that, then I know they'll spend money on books, right? And it can be done. We're doing it. Like, we're selling $250 and $500 tickets, not to just authors lists. Like, we've got those. Like, that's easy, right? It's like, of course, the author's going to be there. Their best fans are going to do that. But we've been able to market into a cold market, but it's very different marketing, right? It's a longer, complex sale. We have to explain things like, yes, this is an event. You're going to pick up your books there. There's going to be these other things, right? But when you get that person in there and you can start to nurture and build that trust, it takes time, right? It's taken about a month. The sales start to convert, right? So, like, if you get somebody that's going to spend $250 with you, then, like, that's a lot of book bubs. Right? So that I think that's such an important point, Dan, about, like, yes, it's harder. Yes, it will cost more. It will take longer. But that customer isn't going to be price sensitive. They're not going to be like, listen, I've got to feed my cats.
It's adapting to change.
Yeah.
And there was a time, and I absolutely love BookBub. BookBub is great. But there was a time when BookBub really drove a lot of the hits. Amazon adjusted our algorithms now, and so it just doesn't have the same sort of impact it used to.
For sure.
And so just aiming for the bargain readers is not going to get you, I think, ultimately where you want to be. And it's not where the market is right now. Well,
for sure. And I think it's like a maturity thing, right? Like, you and I know a lot of people that BookBub was what got them to full-time writing. Like, there was times where you would get one of those and your life changed overnight. Like, all of a sudden it was like, no, I can do this. I can do this full time, right? That's not the way it is anymore. And I too agree that BookBub's got a really important place in the market, but now it's probably not bringing your new release book there day one to go drive the store and make your audience. It's probably to squeeze some more juice out of the lemon on a book that has been released at full price and sold, and now maybe has gone direct and then moved into KU, and now you're just like, we're going to wring a little more out of this.
There's just so much, like, organic visibility that was there 10 years ago within the algorithms of the platforms, but also on Facebook. And I think what people we've had this little cycle of TikTok has had a lot of organic visibility, but all these companies then have to explain to their shareholders how they're going to make that profitable. And so inevitably all of that goes away and becomes pay to play.
Right.
And I think authors sometimes aren't planning for that when it just happens with every business. And so. Yeah,
I mean, that's one where it's like, they're just running the Facebook playbook.
And then as a marketing tool, like years ago with Smashwords, 10, 11 years ago with Smashwords, when authors first started putting their books out there as free, not even free in a series, or first free in a series, but started offering books for free just to get more awareness. Those books are being downloaded like crazy. Yeah. And then newer authors caught on to that as a marketing tool. And then the more authors started doing it, the value of that as a tool started really just falling off a cliff.
Yeah. And I know a lot of folks that still are strong with first free. Yeah. And, but like to your point.
I just meant like standalones.
Back in the day. Yeah.
I think the free first in series is still very good for wide authors. Yeah. I suspect it is for Amazon, but I'm also I don't know as many of the stats from there. Yeah, I think that's now so important. What's your strategy? Like, are you writing series? Do you have a bigger backlist? Can you make it up? That's with everything, even advertising, right? Mm-hmm. Like what you can pay per click now. The reality is if people like us are going for $250 readers, we're going to be able to spend a lot more money finding those readers. That makes it harder for anybody that's looking for readers. I hate to be part of the problem, but a lot of early authors think they need to really start marketing immediately that first book, but it is very hard if you don't have a certain number of books, which a few years ago I probably would have said 3 books. Now it might have shifted up to 5 to 6 books. And a lot of the marketing techniques you learn at conferences like NINC and Author Nation are going to be things that only work if you're selling more than one book, as far as like the margins are concerned, you need that sell through to make the overall ad spend worthwhile. No,
totally makes sense. So you're what are some things people need to really know about that transition and this going back to what we were originally talking about?
The transition.
I know I take people on tangents.
Well, you know, like as we're talking about change, I know a lot of the Smashwords authors really liked the way the system worked and they grew accustomed to it, but it does kind of have to change. There was a lot of technical debt over the years where there's just a lot to their code that would have needed to change for us to continue that platform, and it just didn't end up making sense for us to maintain both. Out of all of it, Draft2Digital authors got a number of new retailers. Smashwords authors are getting access to a number of new retailers. Smashwords authors got access to a lot more payment options because Smashwords was only PayPal. And so now there's a wide variety, and especially with direct deposit, it's so much quicker than PayPal. So it's a way authors can get their hands on their money much sooner. So, you know, we hope the authors will enjoy as we get everyone migrated over. And it gives us a lot more resources because the developers that came over in the Smashwords acquisition are going to focus on the Smashwords store and really beefing up that experience for readers.
Yeah, and I think kind of with the whole change thing, it's, you know, you guys have to, you're in an interesting spot in that you have to think about how your company is going to be of service to readers and authors in the future. So you're going to have to make some decisions.
Yeah.
And, you know.
That's why we're really excited about this migration coming to an end, because then Draft2Digital can focus only on the publishing and the distribution, and finally Smashwords can focus on just being a bookstore, because that was very difficult for the 14 years or whatever that we did that to run a publishing platform and a bookstore at the same time. And then, you know, in the early days in 2008, 2009 that we talked about a little earlier, when we were the first plan was just to publish books and put them for sale at the Smashwords store, but then we pivoted to distribution. And at that time, we kind of just let the Smashwords store go, really, and just focus all of our efforts and resources on building out the distribution part of the business. So we're looking forward to getting back.
Yeah,
to the
no,
retail.
that's really interesting. I never thought about that, how you can kind of, silo is not the right word, but you can have like,
you follow where the money is.
Yeah.
And so I think we've seen that with like Google and Apple, where they make more money off games, and so consequently they put a lot of effort into the media services off of games more than they would in books. So
what else you guys, you know, you've got a million things, but like what else is going on, like with the, you know, print on demand and some of the stuff that's been a project?
Jim, do you want to talk about the print on demand stuff?
Print on demand has been growing so quickly. It's our fastest growing business unit in the entire company. It's really exciting. We came out of beta, and I believe it was March of 2023. We've got, I think it's close to 80,000 books now, not just since the beta was closed, but like 80,000 books that have been put through it. One of the key features of DDD Print is our automated wraparound cover that we can generate for authors. Whereas if you publish a book through DDD Print, as you can start it as an ebook, we'll transport all that metadata over in your print-on-demand file. If you don't have a physical book image yet, we can take your ebook cover, create a front cover, a spine, and a back cover of that book in less than a minute.
All in the right dimensions, depending on the size of the book and what they chose, you know, which size of the book they want to print out. Because, you know, the early days, Draft2Digital worked with CreateSpace, but most authors would quit when we'd ask them for that special print cover. And, you know, like going back and forth with your cover designer and telling them I need it to be exactly these dimensions with this much bleed. And
dude, you have to tell me what this
it was such a technical nightmare that we wanted to build something that was easier than that.
Yeah.
You know, like we have a lot of our authors that do go through some of the other services and know how to get their books up. This is really aimed at those authors that are having problems getting set up, and you know, we're pretty much going to have the best support in the print world because a lot of the different print providers aren't really focusing on the support angle of it, and we work with a lot of people of different technical backgrounds, and so we try to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, and I was talking to our customer support team before traveling to NIC, and I was asking them, how long it takes to create an ebook file or a print-on-demand file, expecting to get like this huge, wide range of answers. But what it boiled down to is you can create an ebook through our platform in less than 5 minutes, and the same holds true for a print-on-demand file as well. But I would caution authors, like, don't try to go through our system and break speed records. That's not what it's about. Like, take your time and really go through the templates that we give for the interior of your book and play with those to find the ones that's right for your specific product, for your specific genre. But if you wanted to break records, we can help you with that too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you I mean, a little bit of flashbacks when you said the word create space, right?
Yeah.
Like, I remember those days. Wow.
Yeah.
And how all that's changed.
Yeah, like, that's something that I'm really glad has changed.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that was so hard. I remember that the first books we were formatting they were also picture heavy, which meant, like, to get them onto Amazon, you had to do all kinds of woo-shoo. It was crazy. Yeah.
Well, the Smashwords style guide,
Yeah.
2008, formatting an ebook, it helped open doors for a lot of authors, but it was a 70-page formatting guide that authors had to literally follow step by step by step by step. And Draft2Digital came along and said, there will be no style guide.
So you've automated all that stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
We kind of brought the same ease that we brought to the ebook world to the print world.
Yeah. Well, that was always the thing that was so cool about, when it was just ebooks, is how easy it was to get a book up there. And, it was so funny because you'd do that and then you'd go over to, like, if you'd ever gone and put a book on Apple, then it was like, I'm going to use D2D now because that was so painful. And then going to Amazon and seeing, oh, well, they're not as bad as Apple, but
Google Play was notoriously just difficult. Kobo did a pretty good job of making an easy platform to upload to. But there's just a lot of them where it's still difficult.
Yeah, it's like, it's clearly an engineer designed this.
Yep. And then when you've got to go in, like, if you're doing like big price promotions around the holidays, you're having to adjust the price of your book at 8 or 9 different platforms. That takes a lot of time. And so we just try to simplify that. We tried to make it where authors could schedule that in advance, just so that they didn't have to worry about it. If they were going to have a big sale the week of Black Friday, they could just schedule it and they wouldn't have to worry about it and could focus on their families.
Oh, no, yeah. Just some of those old days where you're trying to schedule stuff and, I mean, you could miss it by hours and you're screwed. Yeah. So, you guys have had a little commentary in the socials lately?
Yep. It's been an interesting few months.
Yeah.
We put out a survey about AI licensing because, we've been talking, we've had people approach us. We kind of see there's a need for it, but we weren't sure what we wanted to do about it. And so we looked into it as much as we could and wanted to open it up to our community to talk to them about it because it is controversial. Got a lot of good feedback from it, a lot of good insights, I think. For us, we see sort of the writing on the wall that our industry will change because of AI in some way, shape, or form. Like, we're not really in a vacuum. Like, other industries are already embracing it. You hear about stuff in the video gaming world. You see it in just different, obviously, like, movies have been using it for some things and for de-aging people or recreating voices from the past. We would like to give authors a lot more input that some of those creators had, and especially for indie authors because they maintain their rights. These are all things that through Draft2Digital will always be opt-in. So we just wanted to see, is there some room for us to try to negotiate between the tech world and the author world and make sure authors do get paid if their works are used for creating some of these large language models.
Right.
Some of those models are most of the use cases for those are going to be for business applications that have nothing to do with creative writing. Some of them are competitive though, and so trying to get a feel for would people be comfortable with selling the data from their books to help train models that are non-competitive? Would they be comfortable to sell it at a different rate or a higher rate if it's competitive and like helping write other books? Trying to figure out where everything was at the time.
Yeah.
We kind of worked with the Authors Guild and got some feedback from them about what they would like to see in those sorts of situations. Because there's a lot up in the air because there's so many of the different trials that are out there but won't be resolved for years from now. And so I think everyone's interested in setting some sort of precedent where authors have a lot of input on how their works are used and are getting paid appropriately and fairly. And I think what we learned from our licensing survey is that authors really felt like the payout rates that seem like they might be there are just not there yet, and that they're still very uncomfortable overall. There was a large number of people that were open to the idea, but they just needed to see the contracts, which we didn't start building on this or anything because it would be a lot of work, a lot of legal stuff for us. So we just wanted to include the community, and I think what we heard from the community right now is to hold off on this. So we're kind of waiting and seeing at this point.
Yeah, there's some mistrust out there. And I was kind of surprised. There was a fair amount of authors who didn't know that traditional publishers were being approached by AI developers.
I've already signed deals.
Right, they've already signed deals,
have.
and there's a new revenue stream, and that's why we wanted to ask the question, like, hey, if this revenue stream presented itself to our community, would you be interested to opt in?
In those cases, the authors of the traditional publishers didn't have any input
they already
or
signed those rights
say.
away.
They don't know at this point how they will be compensated for it. And if it goes anything like ebooks and audiobooks went, they probably won't make much.
No.
And so it's kind of scary times for there not to be an opportunity for authors to have more input on how this all plays out.
Yeah, I think that's not necessarily an industry issue. It's kind of a general human thing of like, just no versus, well, let's talk through what the scenarios look like because first off, nobody knows, right? And frankly, you could get paid by somebody that's going to train a large language model and you get a bunch of money and they're out of business in 4 years.
Yeah.
Right? That's the kind of world we're in, right?
Yeah.
That there's so many things that we don't understand.
We don't know. There's not been a killer use case for large language models. We don't even know if this time next year those companies will be around because obviously OpenAI is burning through money. Right now they're having an easy time getting investors, but things could change very quickly.
Yeah. So when you were thinking about this, there's clearly some opportunity. I've known you guys for a while that you're not just doing this because there was like money on the table. There was like, you see an opportunity and you see a strategic point somewhere in the future that you would like to be at. So what are the opportunities you think are out there? What are some of the, the alternate realities that we could be going towards that make sense for authors to be?
With their data, just making sure they get compensated for it and that it's they have some choices over how it's used. And there are like the legal contracts can get that specific. For the future, like tools for authors as well. I think we don't talk a lot about. I think a lot of the focus and the fear is around large language models, but AI it's a lot of other technologies. What allowed indie authors to even, like for Amazon and for Smashwords and for Draft2Digital to open up the doors to indie authors is we're able to like use computers to help with reviews, and that's like machine learning type stuff, which is also AI.
Yeah.
So it's kind of at the core of us even existing as a company. It's just, I think now people are scared because they see how it could be competitive with them. I think it can be a great collaborative tool. I don't think people have to worry about AI replacing them for creativity because inherently the technology just kind of follows. Like it needs new ideas, new data. Like it doesn't make up new things. And we see a lot of authors using it for, they don't want to use it necessarily for their to help with the creative process, but they're using it to help them with ad copy.
Yeah,
The
streamline
things
marketing.
that authors don't like, writing bios about themselves. I've used it to help me with a bio adjustment because I feel awkward
Yeah.
about that kind of stuff. We've seen people use it for some sorts of graphics for ads that have been very successful, because it can be very expensive and very time consuming to find some of the illustrators, and sometimes you find a great one and then you don't hear back from them for a very long time. So it's kind of an evolving world. Some authors are more comfortable with using bits of AI to help in their business than others, but we do see that can be a net positive and free up authors to focus more on the parts of what they love about their business.
What are your thoughts, Jim?
I'm thinking that I want authors to understand that if a revenue opportunity exists for them, we're going to take a look at it, because we don't want them to miss out on the opportunities that are presenting themselves to the traditional market. We also want them to know that we won't look at a deal unless there's full radical transparency.
Yeah.
Not only will they know about what their work will be used for, they'll know what their work will not be used for. Everybody has to agree on that.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part, especially when you would bring the lawyers in, and they start trying to make things for the language in a contract, right?
Yeah.
And like we dealt with some of that with our contracting for speakers, that like, hey, our lawyer is telling us that we need to make sure we have permission to use AI. Now, we're not going to make a virtual Jim to do a presentation, but the minute we use translation tools so that somebody in another language can understand his presentation, we have used AI.
Yep.
And we need to be explicit we're doing that. So I think that that's the other part of this, that's understanding the nuances. So we talked about the whole revenue thing, and that was kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to explore it. Let's talk about the other side of it, which is like, what's the nightmare scenario? What is it that you think people...
Yeah, I think the nightmare scenario is just that humans are replaced and those jobs go away. Why I'm particularly not very scared about that is just tracking the history of technological change. There's been very few technological shifts where a large number of workers lost their jobs entirely, and there wasn't something adjacent for them to move into. I think a lot of times it takes away busy work and things, like the spreadsheet replacing like rooms full of math people and accountants. But it didn't put accountants out of business. It didn't impact those accountants are the ones that started feeding data into the Excel sheet. It just sped them up.
Yeah.
I think that's where it's going to go, but I understand why people are afraid. And it is scary how rapidly the technology is growing. And so and let's face it, we've had a good 50 to 100 years of popular culture telling us robots will someday kill us.
Yeah.
And AI will be part of that in some way, shape, or form. So.
Yeah, I get that, and I mean, I've got a real nightmare scenario where, if there was a company that had a massive book data set and all the sales data related to that, and they use that to just make a bunch of pen names and run their business, and just the money they could save on customer service, and not having to figure out who were the real authors and who weren't. But do we really think that's going to happen? Do you think that scenario could compete with all the indie authors and their great ideas? I know where I'd put my money is on the indie authors.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see authors more diligently reviewing the contracts they're signing with several of these big companies, just for reasons like that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It's what's scary to us about there being one player with so much power over the entire industry right now, and what we've tried to protect there being another place to go besides that one player.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's interesting to think, my observations to date of where AI has been applied, that at some point it optimizes and gives everybody the same answer, right?
Yeah.
So where you see people using it for advertising per se, like everyone's copy starts to smell the same. Everybody's ad results when they're using algorithms in the background starts to optimize on the same audience. The secret weapon is not to use that, right?
Yeah.
Is to have like, okay, I know what the average is now. This is what everything's regressed to this mean. How do I, with knowing that, think about if that's what the world has said is what the optimum audience wants, how do I get a little more sophisticated at that and take it to that next level? And I think that, maybe someday a computer can do that.
And we know with the data sets, like the AI algorithms are so based on what they're fed. It's over-representative of certain cultures, of certain perspectives, of certain genders. And so I think there's going to be a lot of room. I can see there being marketing strategies around being this was fully done by a human, and people looking for that more authentic artisanal experience that we're seeing kind of play out in food. We're seeing it play out in restaurant culture, because it's scary to think about how the algorithms optimize for one thing. I think we're seeing that because of how the influence that, say, Spotify has on music. We're getting less diverse music.
Oh,
it's
for sure.
very different than like when I was growing up. Just the wide variety of things I'd hear on the radio.
They're subjected to everything.
Part of it that now is also because of, at least within the U.S., certain companies being able to buy all the radio stations to where they optimize around cost, and so for them they just kept playing the same things because they were cheaper. It was just much more diverse when I was younger. And I think there will be a backlash to everything being algorithmically sane.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other thing that marries up with that makes it problematic is subscriptions, and that, like, why we're so focused on the live event and physical product is observing younger folks are really interested in owning part of the brands they love.
Yeah.
Right. And having had experiences where they've realized they don't own what they thought they owned. It's like, oh, whoever owns Friends decided to renegotiate a deal, and now it's off that subscription service and over on this one. So I really didn't have that.
I often feel like our industry also mirrors what happens in the music industry, but I think the music industry is just ahead of the curve from us, and so the economics of subscription models, it's just individually you're not making as much per book or per whatever creative thing you're selling, and so we've seen a lot of older artists now in music are touring, like that's the way they're making the majority of their money. Some of them are making more than ever, but it's a change that some people weren't happy with and some people have just adapted to.
Yeah, well, and that gets us back to the whole change thing, is understanding how this stuff fits. And I think that the one thing that I've observed is I haven't seen a big company yet that can consistently produce content. They can buy it, they can license it and resell it, but they're going to need somebody to make the widgets.
When you hear companies of the size of Sony saying they don't have enough intellectual property in their video gaming division, that's massive to think about with the amount of money they have to throw at it. But in fact, it's very hard to create endearing intellectual property, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Disney went in and has bought a lot. Obviously, you see the Big Five are constantly trying to acquire more and more and merge more and more. It's really hard to create those incredible franchises that will weather time.
Yeah, I would argue that, since Walt died, Disney hasn't created anything original in a repeatable way, right? They've been amazing at acquiring and distributing, like probably nobody better.
Yeah.
But really,
maybe following like that Pixar formula a little bit too closely with too many films, eventually we do get sick of just the same old.
Yeah, well, then that gets to the algorithmic portfolio model, right? Like, oh, just go give them 20% more of this, right? And then all of a sudden you go from thinking there'd never be enough Marvel movies to could they please stop?
I feel like at a certain point, like Netflix was like, well, we know people like this actor, and we know they like pirates and they like zombies, so let's make a movie featuring this actor as a zombie pirate. Like
Dennis Quaid, pirate zombie.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. I do think that is really something that when data is not used the right way, they just keep regurgitating the same thing, and then you see it with what happened with streaming is and it's happened so many times in history is something's working well and then everybody dives in and they kill it, right? Like, no, now I don't want any of you guys. I this is more than what I was paying my cable bill. Like, what happened?
That's
so when
true.
you see like accountants take over, often within a big business, eventually they'll put an accountant as the CEO and it'll optimize around costs and things like that. And they'll often have missteps because I think there's some advantage to having the person in charge of a company really understanding their product. And if that's not the case, then, I think Intel suffered from that for like a decade. And you've seen that happen with multiple other companies.
Boeing.
Yeah, Boeing.
And that's probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
I think any large producer, whether it's like Disney or a record label or even a retailer, they're not out there creating the trends and creating the new art, but they're really good at exploiting it.
Yeah.
So to bring it back to the authors, it's like, you guys are the ones who are creating the thing. You're creating the art, and you're the ones who indie authors have a closer relationship with their readers than the traditional publishing world has ever had. And so they're the ones who are sparking that word of mouth virality. But then the larger industry was like, oh, hey, this particular genre is hot right now. Let's exploit the hell out of it.
Yeah. Oh, it's romantasy. Go get me
Yes.
20 pounds more romantasy. And it's the reality to your point, Jim, which is really important, is like all of this automation is just trying to replicate a purchase occasion, right? It's like a customer finding the product they want and buying it and being happy about it. And that's one of the things why we're so heavy on the live reader event is like there's nothing more intimate than being belly to belly with a reader. So if you can do that and you can come away from the show with 10 new readers that paid at least $25 to come in the door or bought $100 worth of books to get in for free, like that's data that you can go do something with.
It's even more important than that, Joy, because if one of your readers is sitting down, or one of your authors is sitting down and they meet 10 readers there, those 10 readers, if they like you, they're going to go home and tell all their friends, and their social network is just going to mushroom from there.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things. I was talking to an author who's contributing some stuff to the VIP bag, and they're like, oh, should I sign the book? I'm like, no. You don't want to. If it's going in that bag, you don't want it signed. Because if they're already your fan and they get an extra copy of that book, if they want it signed, they'll come and get you to sign it there.
Yeah.
If they don't, they're going to give it to a friend. What better marketing is there than one of your fans giving another person?
Yeah.
Right?
The best marketing period has always been word of mouth.
Yeah. So, maybe put a barcode or, QR code in there and see if you can track some data and see if that book triggers some sales and its lifespan, right? But it's that idea that we're talking about here where it's like all the wushu and computers and AI. It's like, who's going to win this game is the author that takes care of their readers the best. Hands down.
I think as a business, a big turning point for Draft2Digital was realizing it wasn't just about building the best product or the best platform. We needed to be out at conferences. And so when we started going to conferences and made that really our primary marketing vehicle, was just being out at every conference and getting to know the authors, that changed the whole game for us. And it's that personal connection, I think, is so important in most businesses, because you can have the best solution for a problem, but if people don't know about it or they feel uncomfortable trying something new because they've always done it this one way, they'll never get over that hump without someone to kind of encourage them and having some sort of personal connection to you.
Yeah, I I've used you guys and Damon as examples in the past of like just that, like how did they make it where they're kind of the obvious choice?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because they've been there talking to people, and it's, how many thousand one-on-ones that you've done sitting around.
Yeah.
Just listen to somebody's problems and say, and the answer before they even finish their thing, right? But it's like, yeah, here's how you do it.
Yeah, and they can identify with you. Like, do you share the same ideology and mission?
Yeah.
And once they identify with you, then you have that connection.
Yeah. That's a really important point. I didn't think about that, because they're judging the company on you guys, right? Yeah. And they see you, and like if they do want to rant, they can rant at you.
Yeah. And there's certain parts of the industry where like some of the bigger companies, it's kind of faceless to them. If they make a certain amount of sales, they might have a rep, but they, in most cases, most authors don't. And so I think authors in particular have kind of been screwed over a lot. And so they like to know there's someone that if they have a problem, they can reach out to you. Yeah. And it not be a faceless where they know the name of who they should talk to.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, with trying to do some stuff with the show, trying to get certain companies just to even tell you that they don't come to shows. It's impossible.
Yeah, I in my head I already know some of the ones and have played all kinds of games with it. It's fun.
Yeah. So, anything upcoming you want to share with people, or you want to keep it secret till you tell people at the show? Or?
Well, I think we're somewhere around 80 to 85% done with the migration. We think we'll be nearly all the way done by the end of the year, so that's very exciting. We've got all kinds of cool plans about how we want to update the Smashwords store and just make that a greater experience and continue to grow. Do you remember the year-over-year? I feel like it's like 5 to 6% year-over-year growth of the Smashwords store.
I know that we are tracking toward our 8th consecutive year right now.
Okay.
So we'll finish this year with the 8th consecutive year of sales growth at a time when the rest of the ebook sales across the industry is relatively flat.
If you're one of those authors that are writing like super sexy things, Smashwords store is really great for that. We have a lot of readers that are looking for erotica and very spicy romance, and so it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
No, it's good to know. I mean, when you kind of have a concentration of existing fans, that's the other thing now that we go back in time. That's like, just get yourself a book deal and be in KU. That's the plan, right? Now it's like, oh, well, what do you write? Where are you in your career? Maybe you should go into KU. Maybe you should go over in Smashwords and start building your audience there, because there's a higher concentration of those people and you can get a better connection.
I know right now the whole direct sales game is changing, and we're seeing a lot of people coming out of KU because they want to be able to do direct sales with all their ebooks, with their print, with audio. So that's been exciting to watch. And as always, not every customer is going to be comfortable buying directly from just your website. They'll have their preferred platform. Mm-hmm. But it's such a good opportunity for authors to be able to find super fans, and those super fans will move on. And I think that's good for everyone in the industry.
Mm. Well, I've been saying to people for a long time that if you're in certain genres, KU makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. I get it. But my personal approach would be my books would only be in there when I've deemed they're worth what they're going to give me for a page read.
Yeah.
And it certainly wouldn't be at launch.
Yeah.
If you're going to do the traditional kind of phone company, the new one's $1,500. You wait that model 2 years from now, you'll get it with a 2-year sign up, right?
Yep.
But if you want the best stuff on the day, then you pay for it. And when I wrote stuff about this. If you look at with inflation, what you're getting paid per page read.
You think about it. I think one of the best things that could happen for the industry is just for authors, many of whom are new to business. Many of them weren't business majors, to just think more long term. And I know there's that desire, and you hear people talking about their numbers right now, and they just want it all right now. But you can burn through all your product very quickly if you sell it for too cheap.
Well, that's it. When you see some of the stuff that people have done, even this can happen with direct sales too. If you start doing some of these gambits on box set sales, where you again set yourself up where you're discounting a big chunk of your backlist, and you're setting up a system that's really good at finding discount shoppers. Going back to what we talked about, the idea of, yes, it costs more, it takes longer, but if you buy somebody that's cool with buying books full price, one at a time, and most of us do that, right? We just don't buy books maybe as much.
Yeah.
You don't need as many customers, right?
Good point.
You know, that's the beauty of, you know, you sell a book direct at, you know, $4.99. That's, you know, depending on your page count, that could be up to 20 KU customers.
Yep.
I think we're all familiar with authors who have raised the prices of their books and seen their sales start to increase. And I've seen data recently with the, you know, we talked about first in the series free earlier, but we've seen some data that, you know, free first in the series isn't quite working as well as it once did, and prices at $4.99, even $5.99 for the first in the series seem to be kind of about the sweet spot now.
Well, if, you know, I used to be in a pricing analytics business, and like that was our deal, was to help people, and it's really a lot of psychology and raising prices, but like the math is the math, and you would have to see like the most cataclysmic drop off in sales, right? You would need more than like a 10% drop off in sales for a 3% price increase to not make you a profit.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. Like, and you can't in this kind of business measure that attrition, right? So yeah, anytime you raise your price, you're going to see better results. As long as it's not like, I raised my books to $100. Like, they're not worth that. No, it's like a $1 increase across the board going to make you more money. And if you are playing the KU thing, we've, you know, I've seen the data, I've looked at it, where you have an increase in sales and you have an increase in your KU reads. I think you have to really think about the fact that you, in any subscription service, I don't want to pick on one, the product and the customer relationship there is with that service. And in there's a high transfer possibility. It's like, okay, Dan, I love your books, but if you pulled your books, I'm going to read Jim's. He's writing the same genre.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. And for me, I can't afford anything but my subscription service. You know, but if you build that relationship, that person's going to buy not only that book, but they may buy the t-shirt.
And I hear so many authors that when they leave subscription services and they get those emails from their readers, they don't know what to say. I'm just like, you know, when you're white, you can be on all the library services, and the library service, many readers don't know about them, but they can go like through a service like Libby or Hoopla, they can request books that aren't there, and a lot of times those librarians will purchase them. And that also gives them a lot of access to books that are not in.
Yeah, the librarians actually love that.
Yeah. Well, and I've said that. And the other thing I say is tell them it will be there eventually.
Yeah.
Not today, but this particular company has chosen to pay me this much per book. And my books, when they come out, are worth 3x that. I understand you can't afford it. You're just going to have to wait.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of shows, Susan and I wait till they're 2 seasons in and we go to the library. Because I don't want to pay for all these services anymore. And it's I couldn't watch it until I'm going to watch it, and then I'm going to binge them and I'm going to be done. Right?
Yep.
So I think that's just a level of sophistication. Hopefully we can help communicate to the industry, and people can be like, yeah, it makes sense. Maybe I'll try that. Right? Because I've seen folks move on to your service and, you know, have, you know, pretty significant sales just through the library function.
I think authors are definitely underestimating the libraries are having the request for this indie content. They really do want it, especially in the ebook format. I think indie books are such a deal for library systems versus the traditional deals, where they often traditional deals, they often have to rebuy the book after readers from the library have read it a certain number of times. You do get to set your library price completely independently of your regular sales price, and so you should take into account and have your library price be higher. But it's still going to be a better deal than most traditional books are to the library systems.
And that's something you can do is you can actually build out in your marketing, like ask them in your email sequence when you're doing some type of, indoctrination. Do you like to read your books from a library? Click, yes, I do. Okay. Let me explain to you how, you can get my book at your library. Like it's actually a marketing strategy where they'll go in and, you can give them the script. Just say this to your librarian or print this out and hand it to them.
And it's such a long-term opportunity, I think, where for me, like I was poor when I was being raised. I just read books from the library, but then as an adult, I bought all the ones that I really, really loved. I bought them in multiple formats in a lot of cases, where I have them in ebook and audiobook. And that's something that's hard to tell people right now because it's something that probably won't pay off for another 10 to 15 years. But libraries have been such a discoverability place for so many readers. I think people that are wide now are going to see some future benefits.
Oh, I think if you build a system and you just let it kind of run in the background, you'll see that pay off over time, right? It's not something that is going to make you buy a yacht tomorrow, but like if you have it and it's consistent over, a couple years, you could get it where, oh yeah, I'm seeing 6 digits here.
Yeah.
And out of that, 5% might be library reads, right?
Yep.
So that's cool. And that's stuff that, you guys have been really instrumental in making possible because, wow, there's a lot of services.
Yeah, we've tried to open up as many of the library services to authors as are out there. At the end of the day, we want to give indie authors every opportunity a trad author has as far as reach.
Mm-hmm.
I think in ebooks we're getting really close. In audiobooks, I think it was already kind of close just because of how long it took audiobooks to really take off. Print's still the hard one to get into physical bookstores because just the supply chain is messy.
Yeah, it's not a very efficient one,
Yeah.
right? Like when you hear how it works for traditional publishing, it's not really a great deal for them.
No.
It's probably worth mentioning too that we promote books to the librarians as well and to retailers, but we're actively promoting books all the time.
Oh, okay. I didn't
And
know
the libraries and our library aggregators are always running promotions, and they come to us. They ask us if we have certain books in certain genres, and so we provide them with these books all the time. And our authors, they can sign up for these promotions. All they have to do is fill out our promo form, and we'll let you know if there's a retail promotion or a library promotion that pertains to your books, to your genre.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I should probably let you get back to the beach. You want to tell folks where they can find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, we're at Draft2Digital.com for our platform. We have a blog there you can check out, the Draft2Digital.com/blog. We're out on YouTube as Draft2Digital, so we've got a ton of videos out there where we interview people. We have how-to videos and everything. And then if you want to check out on the reader side, Smashwords.com. Lots of great books there. Where else can they find us? We almost have
Well, they can find us on most of the socials, just at Draft2Digital.
Mm-hmm.
But as Dan said, check us out on YouTube. Visit us there. Comments on Thursdays. Every Thursday we do a Self-Publishing Insiders interview or a webinar. They're live, typically live. And once in a while we have them pre-recorded. But you can participate and interact with us and ask any question that you like.
Yeah, I've been on those. Those are good.
Yeah, and if you like to listen, we're Self-Publishing Insiders, the podcast.
There you go. All right, man. Well, thanks, and we'll see you on the beach.
Thanks for having us, Joe.
Thank you.